Okay, my angels. So here we are in class, and I just wanted to do this quick little live video to let you know that what we're going to be doing in this video is breaking down some more of the symbolism that is in the Baphomet. As I continue to learn things, I'm going to be adding things on, and I found some of the positionings of the hands. I think it's this in a lot of the pictures and in Baphomet doing one up, one down. The words that are on Baphomet's arms. I want to get into some of the description of that, and I want to draw the parallels between, the pagan view of the horned, half human, half animal, that was depicted and named Baal or Baal, some people call it. And I'm sure there's many other names in ancient history that represent that same figure, and then kind of correlate that to Eliphas Levi's Baphomet, because remember that the creatures that the churches were talking about before Eliphas Levi, that existed before him. He's just the modern version of it and added in some very religious things. And basically, so it's very interesting. So I'm going to explain all this, and I'm going to show you pictures that I think are very interesting to kind of correlate and explain to you from Eliphas Levi's words what he meant when he created certain things and put words or put the hands in a position, why it's half, male, half female, all of that. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but I'm also going to show you some very interesting pictures that depict the popes using the same finger structures that you see Baphomet and what it means. Okay, so without further ado, let's just get right into it. I'll see you there. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to address is the coagula and salve written on Baphomet's arms. Now, to Eliphas Levi, who created this modern version of Baphomet, really what he was saying is it's natural, part of the natural world of nature to collect and diffuse. And so he talks a lot about astral light and the process of astral light kind of collecting and diffusing things. And in his words, every man who is possessed by prejudices and fears, every passionate person who is a slave of his passions, is incapable of concentrating or coagulating the astral light or soul of the earth. So let's talk about the word coagulation. Coagula literally means from fluid to a solid state. So, what we're really talking about is the inability to manifest the astral light and the magic of the world. And to solve is to overcome a problem or an obstacle. So, the coagulation is, to take this fluidity and create this astral light, this solid, this soul of the world, right? To manifest the goodness of the astral light and to overcome the obstacles that we face as human beings on this planet. Now, according to Eliphas, Baphomet was really embedded with a lot of religious iconography, because remember, he was a religious person, he was a Catholic. And he kind of thought that the priests who thought Baphomet was something other than a religious symbol that represented the church, he kind of thought that they were morons because they didn't understand this. So if you look at the position of his hands, one up and one down, it's representing the heavens, and the heavens and the earth, or the heavens and the underworld, which is biblical. The fact that Baphomet is male and female is because he's representing it as, there are Adam and Eve, right? That's a biblical teaching of Adam and Eve starting the world. Okay, and we can look at the snakes and all these other things, the snakes of wisdom. We look at the star on top of the head, and if you can see, the point is going up. If the point were going down, then Baphomet would be representing the satanic practice. But in this case, this is the traditional pagan Baphomet of Eliphas Levi. Now, what's interesting is that Baphomet to Eliphas Levi was about focus and abstinence, self abnegation, which means the act of rejecting some things. And he was really into the power of focus, which means that you had to abstain from so many other things. So the fact that Aleister Crowley was using the Baphomet in this book states how laughable it is, because it was likely an inside joke, because Aleister Crowley must have known the original intention of Baphomet, and it was not to do as thy wilt. It was quite the opposite of that. And for people who would just kind of follow along with Aleister Crowley and just believe the things that he was espousing is kind of laughable, because Baphomet was actually representing the opposite of what he was espousing Baphomet to mean. Okay, so let's get into the finger positions here, because I think this is where it's really, really fascinating, and we're going to talk a lot about this. You see that there's a hand raised up and one low. Excuse me. And the fingers are in a very specific position. In what you're looking at right now, you see the two fingers are upright, and you've got the thumb crossing over the other two. And then you've got the pinky and I forget what that ring finger, I guess, is down. So really what you have is three fingers. And when Eliphas Levi was creating the modern version of Baal, or Baal as some people call him, to the pagans, so we have to remember that Baphomet is the modern version, is what Eliphas Levi created with all these religious connotations. But Baphomet existed before as an icon in paganism, which predates Christianity. So I just want to reiterate that again. So we have the hands up and down, okay? We have the finger structures the same. And what's really interesting about this is look at the Pope pictures, okay? These fingers were actually used as what they call a benediction, which is a blessing. And a lot of popes, all the popes, would do this. But the way that the fingers actually started in this position was actually Saint Peter, or Peter. And it was said that Peter had an ulnar nerve problem, which prevented him from being able to completely open his hands up. And this was the position, a very loose position. In the Baphomet, you see it's very tightly together. But as you look at the popes, you can see that their fingers are loosely in these positions. And this started with St. Peter because he had nerve damage in his hand. So he would have had an open hand, but like people do, right? When you imitate those that you aspire. Now this is funny, because here's a pope who's doing the full-on devil sign like he's at a rock concert. I thought that was just totally fascinating. So this hand position is to represent the Holy Trinity. So there's three fingers that are in an actual position: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And this is meant to depict Jesus. The one hand up and one below represents alchemy, because alchemy was all about the coagulation, right? The fluid to the solid, to making something solid into fluid, to realizing the astral light and the power of that, right? And as above, so below, which is the saying of alchemy. He makes the sign of occultism with both hands, pointing upward to the white moon of Chesed and downward to the black moon of Geberab. This sign expresses the perfect harmony of mercy and justice, and this is taken directly out of the Baphomet of Eliphas Levi. So I want to be clear that the hermaphrodite aspect of Baphomet illustrates a common theme in alchemy known as rebus figure, the result of alchemical reconciliation of all opposites. Okay, rebus was commonly used to indicate the completion of a great work. So although this Baphomet is looked upon by the religious of today, and they see Baphomet as some kind of monstrous idol, now you know the true meaning of where it came from, and that it was actually created as a religious symbol of spirituality, and this combination of mixing the spiritual and the magical with religion. And we can see how today it's the same with people who are in esoteric practices. The church still looks down on that. And it's just an ignorance that people understand now. In his usage of a goat, he understood that the Bible uses so many different animals and it's arbitrary. So he considered it, why not a goat as much as a lamb? The goat has female breasts, and thus its only human characteristics are those of maternity and toil, otherwise, the signs of redemption. So I hope you're seeing now how all of these symbols are quite spiritual in nature, and to use them in a negative way is just quite laughable. And now you know.